Hello, everyone. We're happy to have Dr. Don Wright with us. After 17 years as a professor of geography and oceanography at Oregon State University, Dr. Don Wright was appointed Chief Scientist of the Environmental System Research Institution, also known as Esri, a world-leading geographic information system software, data science, and research and development company in October 2011. As Chief Scientist of Esri, Don works directly with the CEO, strengthening the scientific foundation of Esri software and services, while also representing Esri to the national and international scientific community. She maintains an affiliated full professor faculty appointment within the College of Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences at Oregon State University. Don's research interests include geographic information science, ocean informatics, and cyber infrastructure, benthic terrain and habitat characterization, and the processing and interpretation of high-resolution bathymetry video and underwater photographic images. She has authored and co-authored more than 180 articles and 12 books on marine GIS, hydrothermal activity, and tectonics of mid-ocean regions, and marine data modeling. Don has participated in over 20 oceanographic research expeditions worldwide, including 10 legs of the ocean drilling program aboard the JOIDES Resolution, 3 dives in the deep submergence vehicle Alvin, and 2 dives in Pisces 5. Don's recent advisory board service includes the Science Advisory Board of NOAA and the EPA, the Science Advisory Council of Conservation International, the National Academy of Sciences Ocean Studies Board, the Science Advisory Board of Compass Science Communication Incorporation, the E.O. Wilson Biodiversity Foundation, and many journal editorial boards. Don was the recipient of an NSF Career Award in 1995, was awarded a Fulbright to Ireland in 2004, the OSU Milton Harris Award for Excellence in Basic Research in 2005, elected a fellow national to the Explorer Club in 2013, and awarded the George Davidson Medal for Pacific Ocean Exploration and Research in 2020. She is a fellow of the Oceanography Society, the American Association for Advancements of Science, the Geological Society of America, the American Association of Geographers, the California Academy of Sciences, and Sanford Leopold Leadership Program, as well as a former Oregon Professor of the Year. Don holds an individual interdisciplinary PhD in physical geography and marine geology from University of California, Santa Barbara, and Master of Science in Oceanography from Texas A&M, and Bachelor of Science cum laude in Geography from Wheaton College, Illinois. Please hold your questions till the end, and Don, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Coral. You did a great job. Coral and I practiced a little bit before on that long introduction. Really appreciate it, Coral, and it's a huge pleasure to be with you and to see so many friends. Now, I don't see Paul Johnson or Will in the audience. So because this is being recorded, this will be for them a little later, because as you can see behind me, I have quite a Lego fetish. And this is a Lego model of the Shinkai 6500 diving on a hydrothermal vent. So I thought maybe those guys might not have that in their collection. And if they don't, then I hope they enjoyed what I just showed there, because that's a Lego that was released only in Japan for Japanese customers. And the story of how I got it is a long story that I don't have time to go into right now, because I would like to share my screen. And I'm very pleased to share with you a research project that has been a big part of many of our activities here at Esri over the last several years. And the title is 52 Million Points and Counting. And this is about a new stratification approach for mapping and modeling the ocean. And I've been pleased to work on this with many colleagues since around 2016. But most definitely Roger Sayre, who's on the slide as well. He's the USGS Senior Scientist for Ecosystems, Climate, and Land Use Change. Sean Breyer is our ArcGIS Content Program Manager, and a host of other colleagues at Esri, some of whom are in the meeting today. And then at the bottom, you'll see the logos of all of the organizations who have been partners with us in this research. So it really has been a wonderful collaboration. We call this the classic public-private partnership. And I wanted to tell you the story of this public-private partnership. And it starts with the Group on Earth Observations. Many of you hopefully know about the Group of on Earth Observations, or GEO. And the work that I'm going to show you today was actually commissioned by them. They commissioned a map and open data layers to share with the world in terms of ecosystem accounting, ecosystem management, and for the oceans, particularly the designed marine protected areas. If you're unfamiliar with GEO, I call them a mini United Nations of sorts. They consist of about 120 countries, 112 countries, plus the European Commission, and there are 145 additional partners and associate members, including us, but also GEOSS, Global Ocean Observing System, the Open Geospatial Consortium, and others. And we're all collaborating to build this Global Earth Observation System of Systems, or GEOSS. And we are very much trying to get Seabed 2030 involved in that as well, so that the seafloor is fully accounted for in this Earth Observation System of Systems. And the other acronyms that you see there, GEO BON, that's GEO's Biodiversity Observation Network. That's a flagship program within GEO. GEO ECO is GEO Ecosystems. That's a global community activity. And of course, we are all aligning ourselves with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and all of the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is the impetus that guides our work. In fact, just a couple of days ago, I wrote a column in Arc News about our relationship with the Group on Earth Observations. So the URL is up at the top there, and I will give you this entire slide set when I'm done, and you can read a little bit more about Esri's work with GEO. But there were some specific tasks under GEO's Global Ecosystem Classification and Mapping work plans, and this is for the terrestrial, marine, and freshwater parts of the planet. So our work under the lead guidance of Roger Sayre, who was the US representative to GEO, especially on these task forces, starting in 2014 and then the GEO Eco plan in 2016, again, commissioned this work. GEO works over 9 societal benefit areas that frame their activities. And our work is under the biodiversity and ecosystem sustainability benefit area. So the first thing that we actually worked on for GEO was a global ecological land units. So this was a terrestrial effort. I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to talk about this because it informs how we actually did the ecological marine units. And in order to cover the world in terms of how to describe the ecosystems of the planet, we found the best authoritative data sets that we could in terms of global bioclimate, landform, and lithology layers. And we deemed these as the drivers of ecological character. These are physical setting layers, of course, but they are drivers of the ecology that is occurring on the planet's surface. And then land cover was the 4th major global layer that we deem the response to the physical setting. So out of these 4 major land layers at a 250 meter resolution, we did come up with what we hope has been a standard repeatable accounting framework for the world's ecosystems. a global view of environmental diversity, if you will. And the way that these ecological land units are named and described is in a way that does not step on the toes of the ecoregions community and those doing work at finer resolutions. So the example that you see here is, for instance, there is a place that might be warm, wet plains on metamorphic rock with mostly deciduous forest. And so you can see here that the name of that particular ecological land unit is drawn directly from the bioclimate, the landform, the metamorphic rock, or the lithology and the land cover that makes up that particular unit, that 250-meter grid cell. And so that's why you see the names there in different colors to align with the different layers that make up that ecological land unit. There's more information about what we did and the way to access the data sets, but this was actually the impetus for us moving to ecological marine units. And you'll see that, especially when we get to the naming of the ecological marine units, it follows a similar framework. So again, with ecological marine units, there are already regionalizations of the global oceans, and we know these well. We know, of course, about the IHO seas and oceans of the hydrographic offices of the world. We work with large marine ecosystems, the LMEs. We know about the biogeographic realms, of course, the EEZs, exclusive economic zones. Oops, sorry, my cursor got away from me. The marine regions of the world, the meows, the goods, the FAO fisheries, all of these are ways of discretizing and categorizing the ocean. We wanted to come up with something that is a bit different from these, though, because we all know that these are surface expressions of marine regions. And what the ecological marine units, the purpose there was to really try to go 3D and to cover all of the ocean. So the water column, in addition to the sea surface, and then extending down to the geomorphic zones on the sea floor. And we wanted something that would be fully quantifiable throughout the water column, and something that would, that instead of just reflecting the perceptions and local experiences of researchers, this ability to be quantifiable in terms of these definitions for epipelagic, mesopelagic, bathypelagic, et cetera, is really what we have been aiming for as we seek to understand how, again, the physical environment structures biodiversity in the ocean, especially, of course, for fisheries, threatened species that we monitor and protect in marine protected areas. So how do you do this? Where do you get the best physical setting for the ocean, which will in turn drive its ecological character? And what data set could possibly be a start towards this? Well, after a lot of discussion among all of our partners, we decided to standardize on NOAA's World Ocean Atlas. And we started off with the 2013 version 2 of the Atlas. We're now upgrading the ecological marine units to the new 2018 version. But the World Ocean Atlas, and what you see here is a picture of the temperature part of the World Ocean Atlas and the actual citation for this data set. I wanted to make sure to put the citation for the data set here because as many of us know, the citation of data and hopefully soon the citation of software will become as valuable and as practiced as our citation of journal articles. But we deem the World Ocean Atlas as probably the best available set of objectively analyzed climatologies for the major physical parameters of the world's oceans. So spatially, and you can look at the little cartoon on the right, spatially the World Ocean Atlas at its finest resolution is around 1/4 of a degree or around 27 kilometers at the equator for all of the variables, save for nutrients, which are at a 1 kilometer resolution. And we had to subsample the nutrients there. So there's a slight source of error. And then The resolution is about 1/4 of a degree horizontal and vertical, about 102 depth zones in this data set, ranging in thickness from 5 meters at the surface to 100-meter thickness in the deep ocean. And then temporally, the resolution, we used a 5 or 6 decade average. So 1 point in our mesh, and I'll talk in the next slide about what I mean by a mesh, is an average of a 57-year estimate of temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, nitrate, silicate, and phosphate. So these are the 6 variables that we are using, the major physical parameters of the ocean that govern or that affect the ecosystems, the ecology of the ocean. Now, of course, there is the need to actually put biology, to put species abundance and distributions into the ecological marine units. And that is what our case study colleagues have been doing. We have built the frame, and we have been asking colleagues to add to this with additional data. But in terms of a really GISE diagram and how we started to work with this, our first step was to build a 3-dimensional framework, which we call in GIS speak a point mesh. So you can think about this also as a point cloud, where we extracted the World Ocean Atlas data into a global point mesh framework that we created from 52 million plus points that are in the World Ocean Atlas. A lot of these point measurements at all of these depths come from the Argo network, but also from XBTs, CTDs, all of the different types of in situ observations that NOAA over the years has put into the World Ocean Atlas. I should mention also that there's a World Ocean database that is also a very important data set, which is governed by NOAA, but also by the United Nations IODE. But in terms of what we needed for this particular project, we started with the World Ocean Atlas. We attributed these mesh points with the 6 World Ocean Atlas physical and chemical parameters that I mentioned. So you can see these as the feature attributes. So we have the normal GIS depth level, and also that would be the X, Y, and Z, but also attributes of salinity, dissolved oxygen, nitrate, silicate, and phosphate. Now, I really love what Catherine Sullivan, who used to be the NOAA administrator, when we presented this to NOAA to show them what we had done with their data, she said, "Oh, this is awesome, because what you have created is a Christmas tree that you can hang additional ornaments on. So there can be additional attributes, again, hopefully with more of the biology." We then proceeded to do k-means statistical clustering, because we wanted to come up with physically distinct, relatively homogeneous volumetric regions in the water column created from these point measurements, these point observations. And so those are what the actual EMUs are. So with the k-means statistical clustering, we then did a series of statistical tests just to ensure that what we had built was reasonable and realistic. So we used backwards stepwise discriminant analysis to determine if all 6 of the variables contributed significantly to this clustering. And we found that all 6 were indeed significant. Then we used a pseudo-F statistic to give us the optimum number of clusters for the entire world ocean. So there are 37 ecological marine units based on that. And then finally, canonical discriminant analysis verified for us that all 37 clusters were significantly different from one another. Then, so that is what we are showing here in this colorful column that's on the right. And at the top, we also compared and combined the surface occurring ecological marine units with other sea surface partitioning efforts using ocean color. So we actually put Maria Kavanaugh's, she was at Woods Hole, she's now at Oregon State, her seascapes based on MODIS ocean color, her seascape classifications at the top of the EMUs, and at the bottom, there's a geomorphology base. So this is the seafloor physiographic regions and features of Peter Harris's work when Peter Harris was at Geoscience Australia, and he has now taken that work to Grid Arendal in Norway. So that's what's at the bottom of the EMUs, but you basically have the equivalent of a 3D digital ocean. Again, though, this is temporally, we are working on getting this beyond just the 50 to 60 year average of those measurements. Now, this is an example of what one of the EMUs would look like in terms of how we describe it. This is lucky EMU 13. And the technical name is similar to how we named ELUs, because the name is essentially a very long name that includes all of the variables that are in that EMU. So this EMU 13 is a very large EMU covering most of the world ocean. It's bathypelagic, it's very cold, euhaline, hypoxic, with high nitrate, medium phosphate, and high silicate. So it's named for those 6 physiochemical parameters. We also, each of the 37 EMUs also has a common name that's based on the CMEX, the Coastal Marine Ecosystem Classification System, for broader, more general audiences. So this is a deep, very cold, normally salty, low oxygen, but also high nitrate, medium phosphate, high silicate EMU. And this is a 2-dimensional map of EMU 13. Many people are tempted to look at the colors here and think bathymetry, but the colors here are thickness, because the colors are giving you a hint as to what this EMU actually looks like 3-dimensionally underneath the surface. And then all of the summary statistics are there. This is from our metadata that goes with this project. And there are the vertical profiles of all the parameters that are available as well. So this was very interesting to us because when you look at most oceanography and marine biology textbooks that include a diagram of the divisions of the marine environment, this is from Panay's textbook that I used in my classes for many years. It's possible that the sea temperature and the physiographic features such as abyssal plains, you think about them as distinct horizontal layer cake zones going down in depth. Although we're lacking the evidence for this objectively using tested data at a global scale. And so most of the existing marine maps and zonation systems are, again, derived from experience and perspective of authors, the availability of observations in a particular region. But looking at this from a global perspective with our EMUs, and this comes from the initial paper that we published on this in oceanography, as well as an additional paper that Mark Costello did with us in Nature Scientific Reports. Horizontally on the left, well, you're looking at horizontal distributions on the left. These are the 37 mutually exclusive EMU clusters, along with the ELUs on land, those colorful, the cartography on land is actually what the ELUs are. But in terms of the ocean, these represent the maximum global horizontal dimensions of the clusters at the selected depths from 0, 200, 400, all the way down to 3,800 meters in the different colors. And then we're looking at things vertically on the right. So we've got a vertical profile area graph here with depth on the y-axis and cell count for each cluster per area that it covers on the x-axis. So this graph does not show a nice layer cake distribution of these different EMUs. At the top of the water column and through the water column, we can see how many of these clusters either slowly disappear with depth, or in some cases, the deep water clusters become more dominant, and there simply is no clear-cut horizontal boundary for water attributes that we saw at this initial graph, or this initial treatment of the data with this type of diagram. But we're working on future overlays of depth distributions to make this even more informative. And so with a global three-dimensional data set like this, it begs the question of how really do you visualize something like this that is really continuous and with these different types of shapes in 3D. Sometimes it is hard to represent or to visualize or see things in 3D. And I was very honored to see Colin in the audience today, because with those of us at Esri, or in my lab at Oregon State, we've worked with Fledermaus for forever and ever. And the bathymetry has certainly come alive. But in terms of the water column, we started off first with this idea of conceptualizing the data as columnar stacks of cells. So we've got these columns here, and I'm going to share something else. See if I can go to another view here. This is from a story map of our Ecological Marine Units project. And this is one visualization that does zoom into the Hawaiian Islands. And as we zoom in, these cylinders will pop up representing the data points from NOAA's World Ocean Atlas, the 52 million observations spanning over 50 years of the salinity, temperature, dissolved oxygen, nitrate, phosphate, and silicate. But you're looking, the different colors are showing you the EMU clusters, so the actual EMUs. And each of these columns is at the centroid of the surface grid cell, the 27-kilometer grid at the surface. We just extended that to the bottom. And then these particular EMUs are the ones that were hypoxic for that particular region. We also have an app. This is a web app. It's also an app for your phone or for your tablet. It's called the Ecological Marine Unit Explorer, and it's another way to explore these EMUs. You can click on any one of these millions of EMUs at the surface, and over here in the profile, it shows you the EMUs that are the EMU. This is EMU number 8 at the top, but it also shows you what EMUs are below that with their EMU name, and the profile statistics. You can get the temperature profile at that point, along with all of those EMUs as well. And if you click on these EMUs in the chart here, you can also see the extent of neighboring EMUs in that area. But this is, more than anything else, we think it's a wonderful way just to explore the World Ocean Atlas data as well, because you can get a, instead of downloading an FTP file, you can explore through the app much more readily. And then we've worked with various other ways of exploring or working with the EMUs, especially with our JavaScript API. So this is just a chunk of the Ecological Marine Units over the Maldives Islands in the Indian Ocean. This is a prototype, so it's not meant for scientific study. It's just our way of dealing with the API to model that API or to demo that API with this compelling data set, and also showing the ability to query any one of these measurements. So it gives you the EMU name for that particular, where that measurement is, what EMU it's in, and the actual information for the temperature, the salinity, and where available, the other variables. And this is EMU cluster 36. And then this is another demo of the JavaScript API using the global ecological marine units, but in the context of this Spielhaus one ocean projected coordinate system, so that you can see everything in one ocean. And we have loved doing the mathematics behind this to make this an actual projected coordinate system that you can use in a computerized mapping system. Spielhaus was not able to get to actually encoding the mathematics into a computer program like a GIS, but our projection geometry team did this. So you're looking at the EMUs. You can, again, as you move the cursor over, you're getting the vertical profile in that particular part of the ocean for temperature or for salinity, and temperature. You can go down in depth, and you can look at things, say, at 175 meters depth. I'll go back to temperature. We can put the currents there from the Drakkar consortium. We have a global current database. This is the consortium that is led by colleagues in Grenoble, France. And so we have the actual current vectors at different depths within the ocean as well. And there are many, many other possibilities, many things that we can do here, but I just wanted to show you some of the various ways that we're experimenting with visualizing these data. And this is showing you how, when you bring the ecological marine units into our software, ArcGIS Pro, you can do all kinds of interesting things, and of course the geospatial analysis. The EMUs are also available as an open geospatial consortium geo package as well. But here the user has downloaded the ecological marine units as an ArcGIS Pro package, loaded them into a 3D scene, revealing this visualization of the water column in this particular study area. And you can work with transects, so you can digitize, or you can put in a transect. You can work with, in this case, we've made the columns a little narrower cartographically so that you can see once you use a curtain or a fence diagram that can be derived from this. And then also everything is queryable, of course. And then given that salinity and temperature are also key measures in determining how noise propagates through the ocean. In this case, we built a Python tool that integrates with open source scientific libraries to calculate a temperature profile and a sound speed profile, which helps, of course, to identify the base of the mix layer and the thermocline, which are shown here. And so we've got the approximate location of the SOFAR channel, and then we can perform the same calculation across the entire study area and add that SOFAR channel, or that depth, as a three-dimensional surface to the map in ArcGIS Pro. And then, as we know, whales are known to dive deep down to this sound channel to communicate over long distances. So we added a cool three-dimensional whale to the scene from a 3D procedural library. So there are all kinds of really cool things that you can do. The ecological marine units are essentially a voxel in terms of the data structure. And after many years, we do have voxels in our platform. So this is showing you voxels in ArcGIS Pro, and also with the ability to do the curtain or the fence diagrams. You can make voxels of the atmosphere now as well. And the link at the top gives you, takes you to a YouTube video where you can see this demo of this and explore even more. So we continue to work on this project. The ecological marine units are being extended to the ecological coastal units, but presently we've been working on getting the ecological marine units published in some of the outlets that you see on the slide. And we've had over 15 use cases underway, because we have been working with those interested in building their own meshes, attaching their own data performing their own geospatial analyses after they have clustered their data into their own local ecological marine units, and then visualizing and sharing that. So this is giving you a diagram of a workflow that is available on our main website for localizing the global EMUs. So on the left, you're seeing when you want to look at something like the Monterey Bay, something that's built on a quarter-degree grid from the World Ocean Atlas is just not going to be as high resolution as you'd like. So you want something that is much higher resolution to cover an embayment, a local area such as the Monterey Bay. So that's what you're seeing on the right. And the workflow that we provide allows you to work with data from the World Ocean Database, which is at a higher resolution for localized areas. And this is a diagram of the workflow to go through that. You can use the NOAA Select tool to grab raw source data from the World Ocean Database. So for instance, if you're working with glider data, you can extract and standardize and correct that into our format so that you can do a 3D point visualization and analysis. You can create your mesh, your three-dimensional mesh. You can perform whatever three-dimensional interpolation is needed and attach that to the mesh. Then do your EMU clustering using the same spatial statistical workflow that we used, so that you have a viable, rigorous clustering. And then, of course, we have our 3D visualization, our range slider tools, the integration and analysis. You should be able to pop this out into other platforms, such as in Fledermaus, for instance, and go from there. So we have been working over the last few years with several organizations on some specific use cases, and in a couple of cases, students have done a master's thesis project out of this. And this is a poster from AGU showing some of the more successful use cases for testing the viability of ecological marine units for understanding species abundance and distribution data that has been put into the EMUs, thinking about designing of new marine protected areas and the like, especially as an offering, because again, this was commissioned by GEO, so it is now an offering to GEO's Marine Biodiversity Observation Network, which is one of the main initiatives of GEO. And many of you have probably heard quite a bit now about the idea of digital twins. There have been a couple of papers in Nature about especially European collaboratives wanting to create digital twins of the entire planet. And so many of us know Martin Wiesbeck, for instance, of GeoMar, and he's a leading light of the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. He is leading a large collaboration, which includes Esri, but there are probably around 30 organizations, and we are seeking to build digital twins of the ocean. And so this right now is a proposal that looks as though it's going to be accepted by the UN Ocean Decade as a featured project. There's no funding in this, but this is something that, of course, the UN is going to accept the unfunded energy of all of us who believe so fervently in the cause of the SDGs and in ocean discovery and exploration. So we are trying to build, we will try to build digital twins, an international framework for that. And in the very nice logo that someone whipped up from, I think, Martin's lab, sensor data, models, visualizations that will give insights to guide decision-making, interventions, outcomes, further observation of the ocean. So, of course, the ecological marine units, especially in its voxel architecture, will be part of this project. There are also some educational resources that I wanted to share as well. This is from a study that a couple of our spatial statisticians did to use the EMUs to predict the occurrence of seagrass as the ocean continually warms. So this was a paper that was presented at AGU. EOS was very interested in it, so picked it up as a news item. And what the study is about is a simulation of the ocean warming at 2-degree centigrade intervals, and actually using 4 machine learning techniques to model the current relationship of temperature to ocean temperature to the variables within the EMUs. So these are the 4 machine learning techniques that were used. Random forest regression turned out to be the best, and the best match to observed seagrass distribution. So it was a very interesting study. It was actually another one of the use cases. But there is actually a module, a teaching and learning module that rose out of this. It's at this very long URL here, but it's one of a huge catalog of learning and teaching modules that we at Esri have online. It's called learn.arcgis.com, something that's really handy, especially for students. All of the modules are free. All of the modules come with the necessary data and free evaluation copies of any software that you might need. Links to open source libraries that you can load into the software to work with your with the data necessary for the teaching and learning module. So I just wanted to mention that. And then in terms of next steps, I mentioned earlier that the ecological marine units, of course, should be linked with a similar type of classification for the coast, for the global coast. And we have published a 30-meter digital shoreline for the planet, but Roger Sayer is again leading us in this ecological coastal units effort. This is from a book chapter. It's for a book that is really more for a general audience. This is a chapter in the book GIS for Science, which we're calling a cross between Wired magazine and National Geographic, written in the language of Scientific American, very visual. This is a 2-page spread. The chapter is called Earth's Coastlines, but it's really a more general description of how our ecological coastal units, what technical approach we're taking there in terms of the attributes that we are clustering along the coastline that we will merge with the ecological marine units that we have already developed, but also more finely scaled ocean attributes so that we can look at this region of the coast and classify that as well, again, under the auspices of GEO. And there's a YouTube video that tells you more about that. So I think I'm pretty much out of time here. I did mention to my student hosts that I would be willing to stay online a little longer to answer some questions, but I want to end by explaining this slide to you where you can get all kinds of additional information. The main website for the Ecological Marine Units project is here. If you want to go directly to the open access data, including that OGC GEO package and the localized EMU workflow, you can go here. This is all based on the Sayer et al. Oceanography paper that came out in 2017. This is how you can get a hold of me by email or social media, or this is our Esri Sciences portfolio site that features the EMU and many, many other projects. And if you'd like this slide deck that I just presented along with speaker notes, that's here in yellow. And thanks again to our many partners who have been involved in this research and continue to work with us. So thank you again very much for inviting me and for your attention. So I see that my colleagues here have put some helpful information Thank you, Guy, in the chat.
I try to help.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how much time I'm assuming that we end at the top of the hour. So it looks as though we have 5 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Anyone have any questions?
Oh, and I'm sorry to interrupt there at that moment, but normally when I give this talk, there are also questions from students about Esri, or faculty members as well, about Esri in general, how we are able to do what we do in terms of these research projects, even though we are essentially a software development company, and also the possibilities for internships, for working with us on projects like this, and for future employment. So I'll just throw that in as well. You're welcome to ask about that too.
Okay. Thank you for that, Don. If anyone has any questions, you may either unmute yourself or write that down in the chat window.
I have a question. This is not my area of expertise. I don't know what a voxel is. Can you just quickly let me know?
Yes, so you may be familiar with pixels, picture elements. Those are the grids, the squares that you see in a grid in a satellite image or a raster surface, such as a bathymetric surface or a sea surface. A voxel just takes that into a third dimension. So voxel, instead of a picture element, it's a volume element. So you've got many here in the Zoom room here who are the actual inventors of this data architecture, but that's what we call it now, a volume element or a voxel.
Thank you.
Yes, Larry.
Thanks. Yeah, that was wonderful, Don. Thank you so much. I was trying to get a feel from the plots you were showing about what level in the ocean would have the greatest number of EMUs. Is it the surface, or is it somewhere a bit deeper? I just couldn't get a feel for that. And I think, understanding that would be a really interesting thing.
So certainly in terms of the resolution of these voxels, the ones that, or of these EMUs that we didn't have to interpolate as much, the ones that are the most consistently accurate and rigorous in terms of our statistical tests, they're in the upper 500 meters of the ocean. But it's very hard to describe it that way because these EMUs are not stacked on top of each other in a nice horizontal layer cake. They're interleaved. Some of them are vertical. So I think the best way to describe this is to say that the bottom of the ocean, we have the less confidence in these EMUs because, for one thing, they only extend to, I'd say, 4,000 meters depth. We have EMUs that extend all the way down to Challenger Deep, but in terms of our confidence in the tessellation of those EMUs, it's of course less confident. So I would frame this in terms of the confidence rather than the number. And again, the number throughout the entire world ocean is only 37. So in terms of how we clustered all of those millions and millions of points, we clustered them into 37 regions.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question here. Has anybody tried linking your voxels, your data with other popular models such as bombs or like ocean modeling type approaches?
No, not yet. We've been trying to entice the biologists to get more of their species data into the EMUs. And we recently had a talk with a physical oceanographer at Princeton about linking their, it's not ROMs, but it's they did their own ecosystem physical global classification of the ocean. And I'm blanking on the paper that was published in Nature, but we had a conversation with her, probably about 6 months ago, and then we've lost track of each other in the pandemic. But that's the closest that we've had in terms of linking with more physical oceanographic models. The case studies that we've been working on are people trying to either take a portion of our global EMUs and put their own biological, OBIS, for instance, an OBIS CMAP, to put that into the EMUs, or to create their own localized EMU, let's say for an embayment, where they have much higher resolution data for temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, and the nutrients, along with their species abundance and distribution data that they can attach to the small little EMUs that they create on a local scale. That's as far as we've gotten.
So from a marine renewable energy application purpose, perspective, we are often nesting models. So we might use a ROMS model for an entire estuary to help provide inflow data for a more engineering type CFD model on a couple kilometer scale, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what you showed could play a role in this whole nesting ecosystem of nesting models that
Mm-hmm.
are able to provide some answers at different scales.
I agree, and I think it also ties nicely to what the Ditto project is trying to do, the digital twins of the oceans, because they want to create these digital twins, which are undoubtedly going to have nested models within them, so that they can run different scenarios. It might be for ocean energy suitability siting, certainly for the marine protected area planning, looking at different variations on the use of the ocean with transportation, going through their fishing, all of those different ways that we're using, especially the coastal parts of the ocean. So Ditto, as I mentioned, is really just a concept at this point. And Martin Wiesbeck is leading that, and we're waiting to hear from the UN Ocean Decade on whether we can launch that, because once it's launched, then it's going to be, we've got our work packages in the European parlance, and we're going to start building these digital twins, but there will be many, many other overtures to partners to come in and help us to build digital twins, or work with whatever modeling they're doing, whatever data sets they have, and just kind of build it out. Not unlike Lego brick building, where you start with a Lego and then you have additional blocks that you put on top of that to make something that's even bigger or better.
We'll actually be starting on a digital twinning project for our own local tidal estuary here this fall. So, and this is from an energy perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be I'd be happy to check back with what's happening with the Ditto model a couple of years time. Great.
Yeah, it would be great to keep in touch, Martin. And for everybody, I've put somewhere in the chat is my email address. I thought there's a lot in the chat, but there's also the link to my entire slide deck, which of course has my email address, and then my other colleagues are there as well. And I'd like to call out one of the items that, and thank you, Drew. Yes, this is a t-shirt that was designed by our colleague, Drew Stevens, the Esri Ocean Surf Team. And Guy has also pointed out our developer summit is going on right now, which is one of the best ways of looking behind the curtain in terms of all of the software technology that we develop, but also the interface of our technology to the open source world, all of the things that we are working on and prototyping. And he has nicely put in the chat where the videos from that summit, which just wrapped up, are available on YouTube.
Great. Should we copy the chat links, Coral, and maybe send them to everybody after the seminar? That would be great.
Yes, I copied them.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, thank you everyone for joining us. Next seminar is going to be on Tuesday, not Friday. So see you all then. Enjoy the weekend.
And thank
All
you so
right.
much, Dawn, for
Thanks.
being willing to present.
Thank you,
for us. That was an
everybody.
excellent
Thank you.
presentation.